Hello, welcome to another video of CS106A Assignment 5 Yahtzee. And today we'll start with part 2. Last time, part 1, we started with play a game, start first dice roll, second and third roll, mostly just with the roles of the program. Now we're going to work on the actual category selection of the program. And so we're going to build the select category and the check category, and then possibly the check special category if we have time, and the calculate category score. Might actually split that into two videos, but we'll see how it goes. Anyways, select category. Basically, this is the part where it reads the clicks from the Yahtzee display, and then we put that into a method saying, okay, the display detected you clicking on this category, and that's what we're going to do here. Okay, well, the first thing we got to do is take the commentary out of the select category player method, and we need to create the method here. So private void select category, and of course it's got to have a player index, so the player that it's doing it for. Now what we need to do is, just like in the program itself, let's take a look at it. We need to know if there's any display message, okay, just like last time. And so we take a look, and here it says yes, there is. It's a selected category for this role, so we're going to go ahead and put that in. Display.print message, and we're going to say exactly what they said. Select a category for this role. Okay, so after doing that, now what we want to do is figure out, okay, when we select the category, is it the appropriate category? Do we know? We don't. So we're going to put it in a while loop, because we want to keep selecting until we select a valid category or a valid choice, one that has not been selected already with the score. So while true, we're going to go ahead and say that use the information they gave us. INT Category is equal to display dot wait for our player to select the category. Now, where did I get that method from? Well, in the Yahtzee display, it says right here that once you get to this category selection phase, you can call the display.wait for a player to select the category, and it's going to return an int category. Okay. Now here, I have the int category inside the while loop. Probably not a good idea, considering that we want to make sure that that value for category can be used appropriately. Now, you can separate that by putting the int category here without the value, but again, that's something that people may consider, may not consider. I'm just going to stick it right here in category here, just because I'm going to have everything in the while loop, so I'm not going to have to worry about having to call it again outside of it. So it's just going to be created inside here. After I create that instance of the index for the category, what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if it's a valid category. And how do we do that? By calling our conditional method checkCategory. And in this checkCategory, it's going to check two things. It's going to first check who the player is, and it's going to check the category if it's valid. Okay, so there's two parameters for this check. And then if this checkCategory happens to be true, then what do we want to do? We want to then calculate our category score. And again, you need the parameters of the player, comma, the category, in order to do that appropriately. Okay? And then once you've got those down and done, then we can break out of that while loop. Okay? So when we select the category, all we're just doing is checking to see if the condition of selecting that category is true. If it is, it'll calculate it and break the while loop. If it's not, it's going to loop again until you click on a valid category that you can actually input some value into. Okay? Now, notice how when I call checkCategory and calculate category score, I haven't built those methods yet. So they're going to show up red. That's totally fine. But now we can get into that. So the one that I'm going to work on first is the checkCategory. Okay? In checkCategory, we want to check to see if it's one of our 13 choices here, the scoring categories, because you don't want to click on any category. The ones that says Here, I'll show you. The one that says upper score, upper bonus, lower score, total, those are not related to what we want to interact with. We want to interact with only the 13 options where you can actually score your rolls. Okay, so to do that, we need to build a method for checkCategory. Now notice how we used it as condition, which means that it's going to return a value. It's going to be a boolean, so we're going to create a private method of boolean called checkCategory. If you already know about the variables, creating variables, these are new variables that are created for this sold method. So it's not the same as the one on the outside. It's red because we are supposed to return something. We haven't returned something, that's why it's red. Don't worry about that, we'll worry about that later. Fine, we'll make you happy. But let's go ahead and create our check method. So what do we want to do? First of all, where are we checking from? Okay, well if you want to check if there's something there or not, the easiest place to check for that value is from our scorecard. And if you remembered, when we created the two-dimensional array of scorecard, everything initialized in the scorecard was in the happened in the play game method. So we have n categories and players. Once you created that, all those values in that array list are going to be zeros. Okay, which is good because we want it to be initialized as zeros anyways. Okay, so we want to check the condition if the scorecard category and the player, please remember, rows are categories, columns are player is equal to 0. Because if it's not equal to 0, that means there's a value in there already. Okay, so it has to be 0. We also want to check that the category you selected is not any of the the ones that you cannot select, like upper score, upper bonus, lower score, total. You do not want to select those. So what we're going to do is say and category is not equal to our upper score and not equal to our bonus. To our bonus. And oops, I put a comma there. No need. And what else? And it's not equal to our lower score and our total. So let's do that. And is not equal to our lower score and total. Lower score and our total. Oops. Okay, there we go. Nice. Outside the parentheses. Okay. No, because this is an if conditional, so we don't do that, right? So, if this is true, what do you want to do? You want to return a value of true, because it matches our conditions of what's valid and what's not. And then if it's not any of these values, then we'll return a false and have it calculate again which category is valid to choose from. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 should be valid. Then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 should be valid. And those all should be valid. One thing I noticed, which I almost missed, the scorecard itself does not start from 1, rather it starts from 0. So here we actually need to subtract these by 1 in order to have the right index. So if you didn't catch that, you'll eventually catch that when you debug it, but basically lucky enough I was able to catch that and make that correction right there. And that's how you make the check category. Now once you create the check category, what we want to do is now create the method for calculating our category score. Okay, because if it's a valid category, now we got to calculate the appropriate score for that category. So let's go ahead and create that method. This again will be a private void. Okay, so private void calculate category score. And here, again, you need the player index, and you also need the category index as your parameters to make this happen. The one thing is, you should have a variable inside this method to keep track of the score. Because you have 5 dice, and basically, you have to add these individual dices to get the actual score. So it's a good idea to have a variable inside initialized to 0 with a score of 0, so that we can use that as the result. So when we add the dice together and get a total, we can return the score value, which will be the score for that category. Okay, so what's the first thing that we want to do? Well, if it's going to be the top 6 categories, let's put that condition right there. So if category is greater than or equal to the 1's category, okay, and at the same time, category is less than or equal to our 6's, then what do we want to say? Well, we just add them up. We just find it, locate that dice with that value, and add it up. So let's do the for loop for our dice. So this will go through our dice and read them, and we have 5 of them, so less than the instance of, not the instance, but rather number of dice, so 5. Dice plus plus, okay, so now we create the for loop that will go through each dice, and we'll have the condition of if the dice roll happen to be the same number as the category, then we're going to go ahead and add that to the score. So if that dice roll for that index of the dice happens to be equal to our category that we picked, then what we want to do is we want to add to our score that value of the category. Okay, so if it's 1 and dice 1 and dice 5 happen to be 1, then you're going to add 1 in the first dice, add 1 in the 5th dice, that'd be 2, and the score that you're going to return for that player would be 2. Okay, alright, so that's easy for the top one. Okay, it's going to get a little trickier now that we're going to talk about the bottom half. So what's the bottom half? Well, let's take a look at the first scenario, 3 of a kind. Else if our category happens to be, let's say, a 3 of a kind. Okay, so if it's a 3 of a kind, and I'm actually going to also include a 4 of a kind because they're really the same thing, and I'll show you why in a bit. What are we going to do? Oh wait, category is equal to a 4 of a kind. Then what are we going to do? Well, let's take a look at what we should do. If it's a 3 of a kind, take those 3 dice and add them up. If it's a 4 of a kind, take those dice and add them up. So that's cool. It's going to be the same algorithm for both of them. That's why I grouped them together. So here, we need to do that special check to see whether it is a 3 of a kind or a 4 of a kind. So we're going to implement our new method here, check for this special category. Special category, which implies a 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, full house, straights, all that stuff, and see if that category that we have as the parameter actually matches the criteria for it to be in that parameter. Otherwise, it's going to return a 0. And then once you check that and it's true, then of course we want to do the algorithm and follow the rules and add everything up. So that's what we want to do. Check for the parameters, check for the method, see if it returns true. And when it does, or if it does, it will do the actual algorithm for adding up all the dices together. So, dice. Again, this is repetitive at this point. You just need to create the little for loop for that. Dice plus plus. Probably could have created a method just for that, but didn't really think ahead. So take that, and then once you do that, you're just adding everything up together. So score plus equals dice roll, whatever that dice value is. Oops, not parentheses. Dice. There we go. Okay. So that would just be for 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, and then I said that if this check happens to fail, so special check special category fails, then we're going to say that our score value is just going to be 0. Okay. Now let's take a look at another special case. So else if our category happens to be a full house. Well, if it happens to be a full house, what do we want to do? Well, again, we want to check to see if it is a full house in the first place. So if it happens to be a full house, then our score will just simply be 25, because that's what it says right here, 25 points. But if it's not a full house, then our score is simply going to be 0. Okay. Next, else if our category is now a small straight. So if our category happens to be a small straight, then what we're going to do here is go ahead and check, and look at this. I'm just going to copy and paste. It's the same stuff. Copy and paste, check, and this time a small straight gives you a value of 30 points. 30 points. Okay, good. And then else if again, if our category happens to be a what? A large straight. So here we go, large straight. Then that would mean that we would make a score of 40 points right there. And again, vice versa, if it's not that case, then score is 0. Okay, else if category happens to be a what? A Yahtzee, which is a 5 of a kind. Then, again, same conditions, except instead of 40, it's 50. And then chance. Chance is pretty easy. I don't think you need a condition for that one. For chance, I can just simply do the 4 dice rule, because I don't think it really matters. So else if category happens to be equal to chance, then we're simply just going to go through the dice and then add them up. I could have put that in the 1 through 6 method, but I didn't really pay attention to that and didn't realize that. Could have made coding a little bit easier, but yeah. Okay, so dice. Okay, dice plus plus. And then we're going to add each one. So score plus equals 2 the dice roll with the index of the dice inside. And that would return you the value of the chance one. Now, once you do this, once you complete this, alright, and got that score, now we have to update our score sheet, because this is all internal. We need to put it on the graphical interface. So we're going to go to display dot update our score sheet, and we need our category. So that's easy, that's category. We need the player, and guess what? The variable happens to be score, so everything is a done deal. Don't need to change anything. What we do need to do, though, is once you update the graphical interface, we also need to update our two-dimensional array list, because that did not receive the new values. So that would just be category and then player. And again, I just remembered, because indexes is not 1, but rather the 0 is the starting index, we need to subtract these guys by 1 again. And I hope you understand why by now, why we're doing that, because in the display, Yahtzee display, player is represented as 1, not 0. Category is also represented by 1, not 0. So, but in our two-dimensional array, you count starting with 0. So, gotta make that change, and then update that spot with that score that we were able to calculate. Now, if you haven't noticed by now, there's a lot of red here. Why? Because we need to do our check special category, and this check special category would allow us to see if this this actually factors into the right configuration of the 5 dice. So if we were to get a full house, it would check to see if there's a 3 of a kind and a pair. I'll keep that in the next video. So please watch, like and subscribe, and leave some comments if you have any questions. And again, if you have your own code and you have some questions about it, go ahead and comment, and I will try to get back to you and try to answer those questions. But check out the part 3 video. That will be the method for checking the special categories, and it's a very important one because you got to do it in a certain way. Of course, again, there's many different algorithms to it, but I think it's a very important video, so please check it out. Thank you.